Senior advocate of Nigeria and human rights lawyer Femi Falana has accused the Nigerian military of misleading the public on its handling of the alleged coup in Nigeria. Falana was reacting to the military's admission that certain officers will be tried before a judicial panel over an alleged attempt to overthrow the government. The federal government announced in October 2025 that the Independence Day parade scheduled for October 1 to mark Nigeria's 65th anniversary had been cancelled. Days later, reports emerged linking the cancellation to an alleged coup attempt. The defense headquarters dismissed the reports, insisting that the cancellation was unrelated to any coup. Meanwhile, last week Monday, the DHQ finally confirmed that there was an alleged plan to overthrow President Bola Tinubu. We have joining us for this conversation tonight, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana. He will speak to us on why he feels the military owes Nigerians an apology over the attempted coup in the country. Thank you very much for obliging us. There is a history here. What's an apology without concrete steps by the military to ensure this damaging cycle of denial and quiet admission finally ends?
As far as I'm concerned, the announcement by the military authorities, or rather the confirmation of the coup report, came to Nigerians as a surprise, whereas the media had reported the attempted coup last October. The military authorities denied same. Have now come out to admit that there was indeed an attempt to overthrow the government. It is my view that the military authorities owe the nation an apology for initially denying the coup report.
Unfortunately, the network seems to be interrupting this conversation, but let's try again. Sir, if you can hear me, do please continue your thoughts.
Yes, I am saying that since the military authority denied the coup attempt in October last year, the nation, they ought to have been an apology. Now that investigation has confirmed the media report of an attempted coup in October last year. It's not normal. Having denied 3 months ago, we suddenly announced to the nation that indeed there was a coup attempt.
I'm saying we have a history here. This is not the first time that we're getting information that turns out to be true. The original denial turns out to be false. I'm asking, knowing our history, what is the impact of an apology at this time without commiserate action to correct those behaviors?
I want to show that Nigerians are being treated with decency and that the government must admit when it makes an error. And it's a sign of good governance that we deceive, or rather, we made a mistake of thinking there was no coup. We thought it was a case of indiscipline. But having investigated the allegations, we have now confirmed that indeed there was an attempt to unseat the government. The military authorities will not lose anything. On the contrary, they will be teaching some lessons. The government can falter or make an error, and when it's pointed out, the government must learn to apologize.
Okay, this is
that is the only way to treat us as civilized people.
All right, this is alleged treason. What's your position? Because I heard you, I read that you have a concern about them being tried before a judicial panel over the attempt to overthrow the government. What should be the appropriate protocol?
Position is that under a democratic dispensation, as we currently have, a coup attempt is treasonable felony. It cannot be tried before a court martial. It has to be tried before the Federal High Court in line with the provisions of Section 252 of the Constitution. We're no longer under a military dictatorship whereby coup attempts and actual coup d'etats were tried before military tribunals.
Okay.
So just like we witnessed in the Second Republic, when we had the case of Mandara and the Federal Republic of Nigeria, this case has to go to the Federal High Court.
Okay. There seemed to be a silence from the federal government after this denial, this acknowledgement by the military. From your legal position, what should be the response from the government to this confirmation that there was indeed a coup attempt? And do you think the government should also put pressure on the military to apologize for not telling the truth from the get-go?
Well, again, as I said, the military authorities, just like the government, are not above mistakes. At the time the coup attempt was reported, the military authorities and the government denied flatly and asked Nigerians to disbelieve the media report. But upon a thorough investigation, we have now been informed that indeed there was an attempt to overthrow the government in a very bloody manner. Having come to that conclusion, both the federal government and the military authorities ought to tender or reserve apology to Nigerians. But beyond that, the military authorities also said the report has been sent to the president as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Again, as far as the Constitution is concerned, the report has to be sent to the office of the Attorney General for institution, immediate institution of prosecution.
All right.
The Attorney General will have to file the charges before the Federal High Court, and that is why the report has to go to the office of the Attorney General. The President of the country, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, is not empowered to examine reports of coups, coup attempt, or attempted coups.
All right.
No, that's not the function of the President. That function is exclusively reserved for the Attorney General of the country.
Okay, I'm going to merge two questions and ask because of time. The first one is denial truly a legitimate security strategy, or has the military turned truth itself into a credibility gamble in a fragile democracy as ours? And then the second one is, at what point does a constantly changing official story about national security threats become more dangerous than the threat itself, especially in a country already battling insecurity?
Well, the government wants to defend the political stability in the country. The government does not want to scare investors. The government wants to show that democracy has come to stay in Nigeria. Hence, the dismissal of the reports concerning the attempted coup. But haven't come to the conclusion, based on investigation, that indeed there was an attempt to remove the government. The government must address the question of credibility gap with respect to the coup story. Haven't done that. Instead of engaging in media trial, the media must also be warned to stop reporting the details of the investigation, because those who have been accused are entitled to the presumption of innocence. So you cannot find them guilty in the media before they are even arraigned before the court. So the media must stop snippets from the investigators. It is not right. It is not in line with the Constitution. It is prejudicial to fair hearing of those who have been accused. So they must be allowed to have a field day that day in court. They must be given access to their lawyers. They must be given the opportunity to prepare their defense to the charges. And those who are not involved, who are not indicted, should be released without any further delay. About 42 people were arrested. 16 are said to have been indicted. Those who are not indicted ought to have been granted unconditional release of freedom by now. And that is the only way to show Nigerians that the government means business. Whether under a civilian government or under an illegal regime like a military dictatorship, the question of a coup or an attempted coup is addressed squarely.
Okay.
And more so that we are in a region where coup plotting has endangered the democratic process. Apart from Cape Verde and Senegal that have not recorded a coup, only a couple of countries can be said to enjoy, 3 countries that can be said to enjoy political stability in the region. So the government must move very, very speedily to put this matter behind it by arraigning those who have been indicted before the Federal High Court.
All right, that's a good place to pause for now. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you for obliging us tonight.